The Philidor defense is absolutely unstoppable under 2000 ELO. It starts with the move d6, then you play knight f6 and they immediately attack this pawn. By the way, you can win a chestnut go board completely for free in this video, so stay tuned for more details. They play knight to c3, and now the key move, e5. If you play something else, it's not going to be a Philidor, but e5 is the key move here. We attack in the center, and we say, if you want to take my pawn and exchange the queen, be my guest, but I'm gonna destroy you so fast you will not even notice it. Takes it. It would be very miserable if I'm gonna lose after that, but I hope I'm gonna demonstrate you all of the instructive ideas so you can do exactly the same in your own game. Please do not be afraid of this endgame. This is the highest win rate variation I have ever found in chess. I am playing it for 10 years now. People think it's so cool, you cannot castle anymore, I'm gonna attack you and destroy. It doesn't work like that. You don't have the queens on the board anymore, which means I feel very confident in the center of the board. I'm gonna just play c6, which I encourage you to remember forever. This is the key move as you control all of the squares here, d5 and b5, making this knight on c3. Remember it. Absolutely stupid here. It's not doing anything whatsoever. This is going to be our main advantage. They play bishop to c4, attacking the f7 pawn. The key principle in chess that is going to bring you to 2000 ELO is never, ever making a move without thinking what your opponent has created in terms of his threats and what he can achieve after your move. He has played here bishop to c4, attacking my pawn. I cannot ignore it. If I lose it, I'm going to be very bad. But I have a simple way to deal with it. King goes back to e8. Now there are no checks along the d-file, and I defend this pawn on f7. He plays knight to f3, yet again creating this threat against the e5 pawn. But that's no problem, knight to d7. This e5 pawn is your #1 priority. Make sure you're never gonna blunder it, and you're gonna be so successful in this opening. Now we are ready for this typical queenside attack that is gonna bring us the victory in this game. It starts with the move b5. We are gonna immediately attack our opponent's bishop. Yes, for now he has created some threats and we needed to spend time to defend, but it's gonna change in just about the move. We are going to be the one attacking, creating threats, and he's gonna be miserable. See exactly how it happens. I cover all of it in my 10-day opening mastery and of course much more. One course that you need to build an entire lifetime opening repertoire both for white and black. There is a 50% discount right now if you click the link in the description, and you get a full month of live coaching with me. Don't do it just yet. First, I'm gonna show you how powerful this opening is, and after the video, you can take a look in the course. Knight goes back to e2. Well, that is the move I already don't understand, even though my opponent is 2000 ELO, so if you are gonna crush him, you are ready to join the top 1% of the chess players. But knight e2, first, it breaks the golden principle. One piece, one move, so that you can develop every single one of your pieces as fast as possible. Second, what about this pawn on e4? Sometimes they do sacrifice it to open up the e-file and then, yeah, try to destroy my king. But now he literally blocked his own e-file, and I can just take it and attack the bishop. Maybe it's still a trick. Somehow he wants to continue with castles. Then if I take on g5, he's gonna play knight takes g5, attacking this guy. I don't know. That would be hilarious, but I don't believe in it. If your opponent is trying to bluff you, don't doubt yourself. If you see that you can pick up material for free, you don't see how he can punish you for it, don't just trust your opponent intuitively, even if it feels like he's strong. Okay, he just plays bishop h4 to save his bishop, but it's way too slow. He's making a lot of moves with the same pieces. He's going backwards. This is never a good strategy. First, I can play f6 and make sure everything is incredibly solid. But I want to first play this move b5. As I have promised you, this is the typical counterplay we do on the queen side. Almost always it works great. We attack the bishop and it has to go backwards. Every time you go forward and create threat and improve your position, and your opponent has just to go backwards, This is already a huge achievement. All right. If he goes to d3, attacking our knight, well, we simply can bring it back to c5. By the way, an incredibly strong square for the knight, the c5 square controlling so much. For example, threatening e4 immediately, just winning a piece on the spot. If he goes to b3, however, we basically can do the same thing or play this move f6. Everything is great. It's only move number 10, but we are already a pawn up and we already overtake the initiative. How cool is that? And that is against such a strong opponent. Imagine how you're going to destroy your guys with this opening, because chances are they don't face it pretty much never. If you play the Caracan, the Sicilian, the French, well, they know it's a mainstream opening, they have some understanding of what to do there. But the Philidor, nobody plays it, so we are lucky and we can gather so much experience by playing these games, by watching this playlist, by going through the 10-day opening mastery, and we have such a huge advantage compared to our opponents. That is a major factor of why this opening is going to be so successful for you. He's attacking our knight, as promised, just knight back to c5. Yes, knight d to c5 is also possible, but first, it's gonna kind of be stuck here on e4, the second knight, and secondly, we are gonna blunder our opponent is e5. That is the most important pawn, remember about it, never blunder it. Okay, bishop f5, trying to create some counterplay, and I really like it, but I don't think it's gonna work. He just lost a pawn for absolutely nothing. What is the best way to deal with it? A lot of players get a very good position, but they fail to convert it. So what I want to do, everything is already great here, just to make this move f6, so that my pawn structure is very solid, everything is protected, most importantly, this key pawn on e5. Next, I can even play knight to b6. This one is already perfectly placed. Normally what we do, we play knight d7 and then knight to c5. But now, miraculously, another knight turned out to be on c5, which is also great. So we can play knight to b6 with the second one and exchange this powerful bishop on f5 with our bishop on c8 that hasn't even moved yet. Whereas that guy, bishop c4, bishop d3, bishop f5, 3 moves the same piece. That is something you should try to always avoid in your games. The best strategy is one piece, one move. Yes, we also made 3 moves with this knight, but first we got to a very cool position, and secondly, we have won a pawn in the process. So if you have a very good reason behind a second, a third move with the same piece, yes, go for it. Without it, never do it, as it's gonna slow down your development, as well as help your opponent bring more stuff and create more threats for you, and then you're already defending, you're already passive, and once you start being passive, you can never get out of it. Okay, c3, not sure what's the point of that move, because I don't need those d4 and b4 squares. Again, don't make those unnecessary pawn moves in the opening, please. You always want to bring all of your pieces into the game, and you only make the pawn moves to fight for the center or to help yourself to develop your pieces. The c3 move doesn't help him at all. In fact, it only creates more weaknesses. For example, this d3 square. Yes, he's covering it right now with his bishop, but once I play knight to b6 and attack this bishop, that square becomes free and I can just take advantage of that. Knight to d3 check is not something he would be happy to see. Yes, maybe he wants to play bishop to c2 back, but again, whenever you go backwards, it's just a bad strategy. Yes, he's doing that. Now we are free to develop our stuff. Even knight c4 immediately, I think, is pretty good. After b3, I have knight a3, attacking that guy, and he literally has 0 moves to save it. But I don't even think it's necessary, to be honest. Maybe he also wants to play b4. Whenever you have your knight on c5, b4 is something you should be careful with. You don't want just to let him push our knight back. So normally what you do is you play a5. That makes sure that you have 0 problems with it. And I'm ready for bishop e6. Very good move, controlling all of the light squares, avoiding all of the troubles. As for the king, never be afraid of it. Without the queens, you're not going to be checkmated, and your king, in fact, would be very useful in the center, covering so many squares. For example, after bishop e6, I can simply play king to f7, control everything, and I'm good to go. This bishop on h4 is doing absolutely nothing. In fact, I don't see a single piece of my opponent that is truly dangerous, that can create any threats for me. He's playing very weirdly, very passively, and hopefully you will never do that in your games. Rook to d1, yes, finally this rook is active there, but I simply play bishop e6. Developing a new piece, and the best case scenario is when not only you bring a new piece into the game, but you create a threat for the opponent at the same time. I attack here the a2 pawn. I don't even see a single threat my opponent can create, and when that is the case, this is a very nice situation for you. Pause the video for a second here and try to find the best move for black. I hope you did that. There are different ways I can continue the attack. Yes, I can play a4 and start putting some pressure, but I want to show you that it's not needed. All you need to do is bring every single one of your pieces into the game, make sure your king is safe, and then you're ready to destroy your opponent. For example, I play here bishop e7. That helps me to establish the connection between the rooks, which is always great. Once I play king f7, I will achieve that. And also defends the pawn on f6, so that, for example, if he plays knight to g3, threatening knight f5, or just trying to improve his piece, I have that move g6. And I also have g5 in that case, by the way. Very powerful, just winning the bishop on the spot. For now, let's just play king to f7 and achieve my goal. As long as I don't have any weaknesses and my opponent doesn't have any way to create a threat, and that's what I try to keep an eye on, I'm just strategically completely winning, thanks to my extra pawn, very good development, no problems whatsoever. You might be interested in the move bishop to g4 instead of bishop e6. Yes, that's completely fine, trying to compromise his pawn structure, but to be honest, I never want to do that, voluntarily exchanging the bishop for a knight. The bishop is so great, it's powerful on both sides of the board, so why on earth would I exchange it for a knight? Now that I have developed my pieces, I really start thinking about this kingside attack. We have already attacked on the queen side, we have achieved a lot. Maybe I can do the same here, playing g5, bishop g3, h5, threatening just to win the bishop immediately. I mean, it's not even simple for him to stop the threats. I feel like I'm stronger on both sides of the board. One move you don't want to make is playing e4. Hopefully you haven't suggested that, because then you create some holes in your camp. This knight is coming to d4, your c6 pawn is hanging, e4 pawn might be vulnerable. You don't need to unnecessarily create any weaknesses in your camp. Instead, try to optimize your pieces step by step up to a moment where your initiative is just unstoppable and you're just destroying your opponent. It's essential that here, after the opening, you think about your strategic plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you have to find your strategic goal, for example, attacking here on the king side or attacking here on the queen side, and then go all in for it. Don't make like one move here, one move there. You're not gonna catch anything, and that's gonna be full trouble for you. But if you have the strategic goal, you only make moves that are not connected to your plan if your opponent has created a dangerous threat and you have to stop it. Otherwise, focus on your one goal. My opponent already struggles to understand what he should do here because, like I said, there are no weaknesses to attack, there are no penetration squares. He's trying to double the rooks along the d file, but look at these bishops. They are covering every single square where you can go. So that doesn't bring anything. He feels like it's developing. In fact, it's not really improving. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go ahead with that g5 idea of mine. I notice now that he does have some sacrifices in mind. He could play bishop takes g5, knight takes c5. Yes, I'm much better there, but at least it's some activity. Maybe that was the best chance. It goes backwards. Now again, some bishop takes c5 is possible. In the end of the day, my pawn on c6 might be hanging. Maybe I should take it seriously and somehow deal with it. Now that I think of it, maybe king to e8 to f7 was not necessary, because now it runs into those checks all the time, which is a little bit annoying. I can deal with it via bishop d5. At least the pawn on c6 would be protected. He cannot play c4. Yes, I think it solves all of my problems. I can even remaneuver this knight to e6, sometimes a very cool square for us. And I'm ready to continue my attack with h5. So it doesn't matter how great your position is, you want to make sure that your opponent doesn't have counterplay. Sometimes he's willing to sacrifice some material just to get some activity going on. Like my opponent here is so miserable. He doesn't have a single active piece. But suddenly, if he would have played bishop takes g5, knight takes c5, knight takes c6, yes, he is a piece down. But he's attacking, he's creating threats. This is a completely different world. And if you're worse in chess, that's what you should be aiming for. The material won't help you if you are so passive anyway. Now that I protected the pawn, my bishop is so great, I'm ready for h5, h4, g4, just trying to destroy him. One sad thing is that I cannot play f5 anymore. This bishop is controlling that square, but maybe I'm gonna prepare it later on somehow. You see that I'm not developing my rooks yet because I'm not sure where it's going to be useful for me. Maybe I'm going to play h5, h4, g4, open up those files, and the best square for this rook would be h8, so I don't push it. And this one would go to g8 to help my attack, and maybe I'm even going to play for the checkmate or winning one of those pieces. He plays knight to e1. Yeah, the moment you start going backwards with all of those pieces, it's not great at all. I never like such a strategy. Sometimes it's like the only thing you can do, but now you have blocked your own rook. I think the only idea behind that is to play f3 and save the bishop, make it active there. Might be interesting. But what I want to do, I now suddenly attack on the other side of the board. I know, I remember I told you to have one strategic plan and go all in for it, but sometimes you have such a luxury like here that you are stronger on all sides of the board. And then what I want to do is create weaknesses for my opponent everywhere. I created one problem for him here, he has to worry about it, that is why he played backwards. But now notice, well, here there are no pieces suddenly, and I also can create a threat. One of the most important strategic principles in chess is a principle of two weaknesses. If you have one target to attack, that's already great. But if your opponent uses all of his pieces to defend it, it's difficult for you to break through. And then if you can create a second weakness, for example, on the other side of the board, well, your opponent wouldn't be able to defend both of those things at the same time. And that gives you a tremendous advantage and an opportunity to break through. You might be wondering, what is this magic board I use in my videos? It's called Chess.Not EVO. And I enjoy it so much, I have it for a year now. It completely transformed the way I play chess and I train chess, because I can play both on Chess and chess.com online, but on a real board. It's a completely different experience and I enjoy it a lot. I haven't had any major issues, and that's my favorite product from Chess.Not, because I have everything in one place. I have my books here, I have my studies here, I have my games, but they have so many different products according to your needs and your budget. The best part is, of course, you can use the link in the description as well as the promo code journeytograndmaster to get a big discount on all Chess.Not products. Now, back to video. That is what I am doing here. I'm attacking the pawn on b3. If he takes it, the pawn on a2 would be tremendously weak and vulnerable. So is the c3 pawn, as well as the c4 square. Imagine I play knight to c4, attacking that rook. Again, he has to go backwards. This is so horrible. But if he doesn't take on a4 or if he plays b4, all of the same problems. a2 is hanging, c4 square is vulnerable. Otherwise, this pawn on b3 is hanging, and I want just to take it, and moreover, improve my rook. It can go all the way to a2 or even a1, creating a lot of problems for my opponent. There is almost nothing he can do against it. I mean, he can make another move backwards, knight to c1, but you cannot. He's like a boxer standing there on the ropes, waiting for me to come and destroy him. This is not a good strategy. Still, very instructive for you to see how exactly you use this strategic positional advantage here, space advantage, to just destroy your opponent. the material is equal, right? So if I allow my opponent to stabilize, to get a little bit of counterplay, he's going to be fine. It's important not to miss it and use it in the right way. Once you have developed all of your pieces and optimized it, you always should be looking for ways to create threats. A4 is a perfect example for that. H5 is another one. Just trying to improve going forward, create weaknesses in your opponent's camp. That's what you should be focusing on. Another idea I have is just knight to e4. That would fork the rook and the bishop, just making sure that I get a pair of bishops advantage. But I feel that at least first I want to play this a4 move. Yeah, kind of asking him a question. What do you do about it? He decided to take, which actually kind of makes it simpler for me. Now I can just take, I don't want to take with this knight because I want to jump to c4. In fact, I can even do it immediately here and attack that guy on d2. I mean, that's an entire rook, but maybe he has prepared a sacrifice. Rook takes d5 and then pawn takes b5, but still knights to d2, thanks to the fact that he kind of murdered his own rook there, imprisoned it on f1 and has 0 moves. I think knight c4 immediately works great here. So chess is not checkers. Even if your opponent took something, don't assume, oh, okay, I have to immediately take it back automatically. No, maybe you have more active opportunities first, and then you have to take advantage of that. So that's what I'm doing. I play knight takes c4. Maybe though this move also has a drawback, that I'm blocking my own bishop on d5, and now it's not attacking the a2 pawn, which was one of the ideas I had. Okay, anyway, knight takes a4. I open up my rook there, so that now, I don't know, some ideas like knight to b2, knight to a3, second knight to b2, all kinds of ideas my opponent has to think about. Also, just the move bishop c5 I like, to pin that pawn on f2, and now h5 becomes an idea again, more powerful one. So if he wants to play f3, he probably should do it right now. Plays bishop b3 instead. Not sure what's the point of that move. Yeah, he tries to protect the pawn. That I understand. But let me improve. When you don't know what to do in chess, you want to improve your worst placed piece. And right now, it's this bishop on e7. It's not doing anything at all. So I'm playing bishop to c5 so that it's controlling this powerful diagonal. By the way, now that I think about it, my opponent couldn't have played f3 anyway because of this knight e3 forking his rooks, and he's in big trouble. Obviously, I'm never afraid of this bishop takes c4. I'm going to just take it back. But what my opponent can do is play knight to d3 here, and at least that is going to attack my bishop. Yeah, maybe h5 immediately was just better. That is what he does. Still, he has so many weaknesses, and I already achieved, like, if I would have waited one move, then maybe after knight d3 I wouldn't be able to remaneuver my bishop so easily to this diagonal. But here, I don't know, bishop b6 or even bishop a7, because now that a2 pawn is protected, and I might need the b6 square for my knight again. Yeah, but bishop b6 is more active. Maybe I will even go to a5 at some point, attacking that weakness on c3. When you have so many targets to attack, that makes your life much easier. One thing that I noticed that I should be careful with, you can play knight to b4 now, attacking both of my bishop and my pawn on c6. No, I feel that bishop c5 wasn't the best thing. h5 was stronger. As you see, it's never too late to spoil your position. You should be always careful with your opponent's counterplay. I'm not afraid of knight b4 too much though, as I can just play rook to d8, improve my rook, defend the bishop. If he takes, I have a beautiful pawn center. No weaknesses, no problems whatsoever. Yet I still think that is the best chance for him. One more thing I can do after knight b4 is play bishop to e4, but I don't like it. It's getting weird. Rook d7, why would I allow that? I should have played h5 when I had a chance. Let's see what my opponent chooses. It's so difficult for him to play when you are so stuck in your camp, when you don't have any fresh air to breathe. He has to spend a lot of time to figure out how not to lose, how to survive one more move. That it's going to be more and more difficult for him with the time. He's getting into time trouble. The problems still exist there. So our task is not to spoil anything, just to slowly improve our position. That's what I'm trying to do, even if I'm not perfect with that. But that's my point. This opening is great for you not only if you make all of the moves perfect. It's about understanding the ideas. You don't need to memorize that much, and that is what my course is based. I don't want you to remember those 20 moves variations, otherwise you're going to lose. No, I want you to concentrate on the key ideas, understand it deeply, and use it in every single game that you play. That is the majority of what my course is built on. Taking a lot of time to take his decision. I don't even see an alternative to the move knight to b4. If I were white, I would play it kind of immediately, saving some time and trying to be as active as possible. Another way, instead of rook to d8, is actually to play king to e6, talking about the king in the center. You might be afraid to put it there because, oh my god, I cannot castle anymore. But you see, you don't need to castle in such a position. In fact, your king might be very useful in the center. Yeah, there might be some drawbacks going to the e-file. He can play rook e1 and then maybe knight d4 check. So maybe you should wait with that. But as an idea, it's very interesting. Some variations might be very useful. I think I have spotted a very nice idea that would have basically won the game. I want to show it to you. Here, instead of bishop c5, I could have played f5, threatening f4, thanks to the fact that my pawn on e5 is protected. That would be so nice. Still doesn't make a move. And now, unfortunately, I'm not able to play f5 anymore because my e5 pawn is hanging. I can make these threats possible again if I play something like rook e8, rook d8. I feel that the center is now pretty opened, so it actually makes sense for me to bring my rooks to the center. That would be powerful. I feel in the last few moves I'm just shuffling pieces back and forth. It's not that great. Okay, finally, let's improve the situation and play this move rook to d8. Have prepared for a long time. Let's not waste any time. That is also an opportunity to put some pressure on your opponent in terms of time. Remember, chess is always a battle of two things, the board and the clock, and ideally you should be better in both of those stages. And if you have thought about your opponent's response, you have calculated, then you can just make your move immediately and make it even more difficult for him. h4. That is interesting. He's trying to create some pressure on this side of the board where he's actually weaker. That is normally very dangerous. I feel like I want to play knight to b2, knight a to b2, because that would defend my second knight and attack the rook, pushing it away from the... Yeah, let's actually do it. That is the most active way to go ahead. My knight on a4 is not doing much anyway. And here, I want just to win this d-file. Like, where do you go? If you go to b1, I have bishop e4 attacking you further. Do I have this f5 idea here? No, probably not. I have to at least defend the pawn first. So let me play h6. It's hard for him to even make a move. I think he should take my bishop at least. The more pieces he exchanges, the simpler it gets for him. So I don't want to exchange too many pieces. Maybe I want to play bishop e4 and then c5, getting rid of this bishop. Bishop takes e4 instead. Maybe he thinks that I cannot take with the bishop because then my pawn would be hanging, but that is not necessarily true because I also attack that knight. Even if he takes my rook, I'm going to have a lot of material in that. But what I think here is that if I play bishop takes e4, he has rook c2. At the same time defending the knight and attacking my knight on b2, and then the c6 pawn is still hanging. To avoid all of the troubles there, I want just to take back with the knight. That cannot be bad anyway. Now if he takes with the knight here on d5, I can even take with the rook, fighting for the open d file, threatening rook d2. That is so powerful. Most importantly, this bishop on g3 just does not participate in the game. Just compare it with this bishop on b6. There is no comparison to be made. And now, this f5 idea is a threat again. For example, here after rook to d1. Yes, he wants to take here on d5 in a situation where I cannot win the d file. But first, I have this move bishop b4. Then he cannot exchange my bishop at all. Yes, I like it so much. Like f5 is an alternative, but I want to stop him from even creating any weaknesses for me. Now I can even think about the move c5, pushing the knight even further. Or just making this f5 move next. It's very low on time, has to struggle because of that, kind of fun. Yes, the point is that he wants to make this f3 move possible, but a huge but is that that weakens that e3 square, and I'm gonna just go ahead and win some material. So it's time to play f5. This is the most active move, I like it so much. He goes for f3. But what about knight e3 check? That is a fork. The g2 pawn would be hanging, so if he plays king e1, I can just play knight takes g2 check, winning that important pawn and then just coming back, winning s3, everything. But if he plays to g1 or f2, then I'm gonna take the rook with a discovered check. Yeah, here I like knight takes g2 check. To say the least, I would be able to take the f3 pawn and defend my knight. Let's choose what is best here. I think just going back to e3 and taking the rook is the best option. Let's go for it. If I take on f3, that is also great, but then I lose the pawn on e5, and at least his bishop somehow becomes alive again. But if I take the rook on the other hand, first I secure a very good material advantage, and second, I think his idea was to take my bishop. I want to play f4, just making sure this bishop is not gonna be alive in this game. Okay, he just takes, but then it solves all of the problems. I can simply, I don't know, take here on d1 with the check, exchanging even more pieces. This is the simplest strategy when you have material advantage, just to exchange as many pieces as possible to simplify the situation. And now I can take on f3. I have a very powerful advantage of two bishops, as they control pretty much the entire board, and there is also an annoying pin here on the e2 square, so he cannot go away with the knight, and he also cannot touch his bishop, this e5 pawn. Why? Because now the e file is going to be opened, and I can just take advantage of that, play rook to e8, and win one of those pieces. It's very difficult to give a good advice to my opponent anyway. Now, the giveaway. You can win the Chestnut Go board from the sponsor of today's video completely for free. All you need to do is like this video and leave a comment. You can write whatever you want, but to give you some hints, share your results with this beautiful opening. Whether you have tried to play it, what are your results, what are your challenges, so that I can help you address it in my future videos, what are your overall impressions, and so on. Okay, he actually tries to still save it somehow, plays knight to d3. I don't believe you can save it, though. I don't know, it feels like you have so many pins to deal with. Just thinking about the best way. I think it's c5. Just bringing the pawn all the way to c4. You always want to bring as many pieces to your attack as possible. And so the c6 pawn was not participating. Now I want to bring it to c4, and he cannot do anything. He cannot move his bishop because the knight is hanging. He cannot touch his knight because it's pinned. He cannot touch this knight because the bishop on e5 is hanging. Yeah, now I think I just want to take this guy so that I make sure it doesn't move, it doesn't create any threat. and afterwards I win some material. He takes with the king, then this bishop is pinned. By the way, bishop c7 obviously also wins, but I wanted to play c4 to include more stuff in the attack and create even more threats. I'm gonna choose the winner in 1 week from publishing this video. Right now, Chestnut has an amazing discount because they have an anniversary, they celebrate their birthday, so let's congratulate them. Thanks so much for making these videos possible so that I can provide all of this useful content for you completely for free. And you can just win a board. We had a lot of winners before. I'm gonna share results in 1 week. Good luck with that. Meanwhile, I'm gonna play c4 here, attack this knight on d3, the bishop on e5, and my opponent resigns. In this playlist, you can learn so much more about this amazing opening, how to crush anyone. And don't forget, there is an amazing offer on 10-day opening mastery, a full month of live coaching with me included completely for free. The link is in the description. Make sure to grab your spot.